Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. This is the 8th day of my Advent calendar, and a very warm welcome to you. And thank you all for your support and comments and feedback that I've been getting to these sessions. Today, I am going to expand on something I mentioned yesterday. And this tarot tip has to do with having a look at the seasons in the tarot deck that you are working with and the confounding artwork. Good morning, Mary Beth. If you're new to my channel, my name is Sadhana. Hello. So the seasons and the tarot versus the elements and the tarot are a rather interesting conversation. In the seasons of the Golden Dawn, and the Waite-Smith deck is most certainly a Golden Dawn deck. Not here to argue that right now, but let's just say that it is. The element of fire is the spring, and it is associated with the energy from the 21st of March, or something like that, 20th of March, right? When spring starts. Hello to Angela, Clevis, and Casey. Welcome. And why would we even be concerned? Hello, Sarah. Welcome. Why would we even be concerned about cards and seasons? Well, the energy of the seasons gives us some qualities that we can add to our reading, most certainly. The energy of spring is about birth. It's about new beginnings. Everywhere we live in the world is in a different place in the world, and so the weather is different. Most tarot decks, unfortunately, are geared to Northern Hemisphere, Eurocentric kind of energy. And I say unfortunately because there's people all over the world that read the tarot and have to use this restriction as far as seasons go. And my whole point in this little tip this morning is to not worry about it. It is a good thing to know, and it can help add layers to your reading, but it's not something to get upset about. And I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to share with you something you might want to do if it is bothering you, okay? Is there in any way a hint of spring in these cards? Well, perhaps the new growth on the leaves, but there are no flowers, there's no blossoms. There are some desert scenes there. In no way, to me, does this particular group of cards look like spring. This is a suit of arrows from the deck I used yesterday, and spring in the Wildwood Tarot is not, the seasons are not divided by the solstices. They are divided by the cross quarter days. So this suit begins at February 1st and goes to May 1st. And if I scan through these pictures, I would be hard pressed, particularly when this deck says that the 8 is going to be closer to Beltane, closer to May 1st, that this looks like a spring picture. However, depending on where you live, it might very well look like a spring picture. Butterflies I tend to associate with summer, and there may very well be some spring-like energy in any of these cards. The energy of spring is metaphorical. It is the time of year when and this is something that comes to me from studying of playing cards, and also maybe a little bit from Susie Chang. I really like the way that she talks about the energy of spring and the element of fire being the thrust, the energy that is needed to turn over the hardened soil. And so that this particular suit requires some manual labor, some physical force of sorts. And so in the Golden Dawn, Susie Chang is most definitely Golden Dawn. Fire makes perfect sense because fire is associated with thrust and masculine energy. However, you are working with seasons and the tarot and elements and the tarot, I have just found a way to sort of let go of all of this. Yesterday, I commented on the wolf. So in the suit of stones in this deck, in this deck, the court cards, if you're going to use them in their associated timings with the wheel of the year, the wolf comes first. So right at Samhain, at November 1st. And the wolf card, we'll come to this one in a second, has a lovely first snow. And I suppose you could stretch it and say that maybe there is some freak snowstorm at Samhain where you live, or maybe that's just the energy of the weather. However, something I was thinking about was the haunting cry of the wolf is better carried in the conditions of the snow and the cold. And I quite like that this has snow in the picture. And similarly, the bear, which is the next court, so that's going to come several weeks later, more towards as the weather's getting cold, looks like this, and there is no snow to be seen. It doesn't particularly look like winter. It looks like could be a sunny morning anywhere, any time of year, really. And so I'm going to go back to these coloring pages as a suggestion of what you might do if this is really upsetting you. So yesterday I talked about creating coloring pages from the purpose of creating coloring pages from any deck that you are working with is so that you can look at the details of each card in a different way. We see things differently when a deck is in black and white than when it is in full color. And if you looked at this card in black and white, you may see the starkness of the winter. It might feel colder. But what if you created these coloring pages, even just for one season of a tarot deck, and simply just put your printer to grayscale and created 14 pages of a particular suit. And then you could really think about the challenges of coloring the deck according to the season. You could have touches of snow between the bear's legs. You could put other signs of winter. I mean, there is no growth at the edge of this cave. That certainly might be a sign of winter. And so creating coloring pages might be a way for you to reflect more deeply on the seasons and your relationship with the understanding of the seasons in the tarot deck that you are working with. I find it invaluable to know how a particular deck associates the cards with seasons. I like that information. It just adds so much. And I mentioned yesterday that I will be doing a comparative study a short one of the green wood and the wild wood, and talking about how these two decks deal differently with the wheel of the year. Both decks start at February 1st. However, this deck that you're looking at here starts with a suit of arrows, and the greenwood starts with a suit of fire, the suit of bows. And why these two decks, who are both associated with Mark Ryan, do this differently is beyond me, but this is something that I think I need to know if I'm working with these decks. So I invite you to think about this and find a way to just, like I said, understand the seasons metaphorically. That has been the most helpful way for me to work with these challenges. I do have some tarot decks that do a better job of matching the seasons, and because some of them are drawn that way, I'm thinking of the Victorian Fairy Tarot and the suit of summer, all of those lovely fairies playing in the water and the rivers. And I love how the aces are a gateway from one season to another. So if you are looking for decks that do a better job of matching artwork to seasons, they do exist. And some of them are great readers and some of them not so much. So that's another whole other question. And so I hope that gives you some food for thought for this morning. In the mood of self-care and all that we've been talking about over the past few days, I decided to pull out Future Ancestor Tarot. I find this to be a very lovely deck for that, for self-care, it has a tenderness to it. And if you don't know this deck, it's called Future Ancestor Tarot. And don't let the name make this deck one only to be doing readings about ancestors. It's so much more than that. I think I will do a first part of the first operation today. Look for the Temperance card. It is the card of the season that we are in. We are in a lunar decan as far as that goes, with the 9 of Wands. The moon is in Leo right now, and that's a lot of fire with Sag and the moon in Leo. And so I think looking to softness today, looking to harmony, and a message of harmony is going to be good for all of us. I really would like the Temperance card to be in the water pile. It just feels like it knows that it needs to be there. And if it's not there, then it's struggling. It's struggling, and I want to ask why. Why is it struggling? Because it doesn't need to be. Strength is in the pile of water. That's very nice. there's so much that we can learn from this particular way of cutting the cards. It's not here. So why is temperance struggling? Why am I struggling with balance? Why am I struggling with wholeness, wellness? Why am I struggling with my own healing and harmony? So find a question for yourself to reflect on and respond to. Yeah. Okay. So it's in the fire pile. And I think that there might be times when I want temperance to be in the fire pile because I want to have that, I need that energy of fire. But right now, I don't feel that's what is needed. I feel in the mood of self-care and big picture, receptivity is what we need. It was really what we need. So with temperance being in this fire pile, let's all, and the card on the bottom of the pile is the Emperor, so we have a very strong energy of fire at the bottom of this pile. Just be mindful of not overdoing it. It's going to be really easy to burn out. Yes, you might get things done. Yes, there may be a sense of accomplishment, but just be mindful at what cost. All right, so let's tell a story here. And I'm going to carry on with this language because I think it might be an important way to reflect on this. Temperance is feeling energized. Temperance is maybe striving, wanting too hard to get it right. There is the hermit here. The hermit in this particular illustration is reading a book. Turning in. Wanting to dive into self-reflection. On the other side is the Ace of Cups, a card of seeking on opportunities and beginning new emotional perspectives. So it looks like temperance is doing exactly what I want it to do. But the beauty of interpreting cards based on the pile that they come in and an awareness of that adds another layer to this. And I want to say here that on the surface, it looks like you're trying too hard. And I'm speaking to myself just as much as I'm speaking to anybody else that this is resonating with. It is really important that all of this be harmonized? We want to indeed do self-study, read a holy book. Maybe for the first time ever, we're going to pick up and read some of the Bhagavad Gita, or we're going to look at a wonderful tarot book that speaks to the spiritual qualities of some of the cards. Maybe we're going to dedicate our mornings to solo walks into the forest. Maybe we are really going to embrace this energy of the hermit. And we're also wanting to, I feel with this fire, the word fix. The word fix is a problem. And often the masculine energy is a fixer. And I want you to know that there's nothing to be fixed. You are as you are, right? It's not about fixing something. And when I hear that word and I hear other people say that word, it means that we can do something and it's all going to be better. And I think what I've been talking about the last few days is about lifestyle rather than, a quick fix, and how important adopting all of this is for, forever, for life. And I'm sure there was something that came up here where I talked about how if you step into this, maybe we're talking about the awakening card, there's a tendency that friends will disappear. You won't be able to be friends with certain groups of people. Relationships might crumble. And it's important that you understand you don't have to micromanage everything. So be very careful of micromanagement, including your own self-care. Yes, take an extra day off. And on that day off, go for a good walk. Right? Go for a good walk. Find a way to balance fire and water. Now, what is on the other side of all of this? We have the Five of Cups and we have the Five of Virtue, the Hierophant card. So on the left hand of Temperance, we have two Earth cards. This is so funny. I talked about these two cards. So on the left hand, we have two important earthy major arcana. And on the right hand and on the left hand, we have two water cards, neither of which are easy to navigate. We have wisdom over here, helping us to negotiate and navigate the energy of the Five of Cups. How can the energy of the fifth major arcana help us to manage this card here? Now, this is such a doozy because the Five of Cups is perhaps the most difficult card in the tarot, planet astrologically speaking. The Five of Cups, when we look at its number, its decan, and its sign, gets hit 3 times by Mars. There's a real fiery quality here to do something about this situation. And never do we see this in the artwork. This is something that you learn by studying the decans. And yes, emotionally it's painted as quite a difficult card. But it's really hard to balance. Now, fortunately, the Five of Cups is in a water sign, which you would think would sort of bathe this energy. But here in this reading today, we are drawing on an earth sign. We're drawing on a message of grounding and wisdom. And perhaps there's an aspect of listening here that I'm thinking of that feels really important. There may very well be a mentor, a sister, a brother who can support you with. Now, I want you to think about the Five of Cups, not so much in terms of letting go of a relationship, but as you emotionally moving on from something because it is for your greater good. Think of the Five of Cups as a really strong card of stepping on to your, the Hierophant keeps popping up, stepping on to your, or redirecting you on your spiritual path because you haven't been paying attention. And then if you think of the Hierophant as a spiritual leader, as a spiritual mentor, there may be, and the Hierophant certainly can come from within, it can come from a book, but often there are others who will help you with all of this. The theme of temperance is really important. This is one of the most important cards in the major arcana. It is deeply connected to others, it's deeply connected to the Star, the Lovers, and some other cards. The wisdom in this card, if we are seeking the rainbow, if we are seeking peace and harmony and happiness, there is a lot of work to do. Just be mindful that you're not falling into the mindset of, all right, I got to fix this. So take it in small steps and ask yourself, is this something I can adopt for 3 months, 6 months, for a lifetime? And if you can't, it's not going to work. It's not going to stick. It's like dieting. Dieting is such a dangerous thing. It's got to be a lifestyle. Something that you can do for 6 months, a year, the rest of your life to feel differently. And maybe you want to think about temperance as what you've previously thought of as dieting. And it's interesting that I have gone in this direction, because harmony and balance and the health and wellness of the physical body is very much a part of this story. It's not just about your spiritual temperance. And so loving oneself and committing to loving oneself and saying to oneself every single day, I love you. You matter. Being able to look in the mirror and say that, to take time, to study and reflect on what got me here, is an important part of the journey of shifting one's, the way one moves and eats and lives and is in every day. And when I think of this card in terms of that particular theme, I think that, well, maybe there are some groups of people that don't help with the choices that you make. And so the Five of Cups in that regard may very well represent, saying goodbye to a favorite group of people who help to keep you in a habit that is detrimental to your health. There may be another theme, right, that you can work with temperance. And so when it comes to it and focusing on this theme, it could be about your relationship with your children. And that's a really interesting. I know a lot of women follow my channel, mothers, and so you could think of this question in terms of that. So when I narrow in on a topic, it's not necessarily the only topic that fits into this theme, and I know a lot of you understand that, but I just want to mention that again. So thanks for hanging out with me this morning. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow for day 9. Namaste.